Ladies, gentlemen, everyone in between, welcome to Talking at 6. I am your host, 1-6, aka no major spoilers, aka some minor spoilers, aka good evening, Mr. Wick, aka frenemies for life, aka long live the king, aka brutal. Shout out to Cinema Sins, aka good dog, aka vehicular combat, aka fighting round the world, aka John Wick in Japan. He's John Wick in Japan, aka motherfucker shot me in the ass, aka rest in peace, Lance Riddick. In today's episode, I will be discussing slash reviewing slash trying not to spoil John Wick 4. For those of you that aren't familiar with the John Wick series, basically it follows the life of a retired assassin who lives in a somewhat fictionalized universe, like fictionalized version of New York City and just the world in general, Earth in general, where there is a secret society of assassins who answer to the top of the organization known as the Higher Table, which honestly the whole thing is surrounded mystery and lore. The lore about them is very mysterious, and there's very little known that is very little that's said about it, and like information about the High Table is only given as needed, like only when it fits the story. So you never fully get like in the four movies. This fourth movie in the series, and then throughout the four movies, you never fully get like a complete overarching lore of them, but you get like different tidbits of like basically just show how far their reach is and how powerful they are. You ever actually see who is at the High Table. You just see their underlings, and even like the underlings of the High Table are still pretty high ranking that come out of it, and it's like intense, crazy, like secret shadow organization. And like in previous movies, like there's parts where like where, like there's a moment where like a bunch of like it's some like the main character John Wick played by Keanu Reeves gets set up to where like he becomes a target of the organization, and like there's one point where like he's like standing in a park in the middle of New York, and like there's just a bunch of people around. They all stop, turn, look at him at the same time, and like pause for a second, and then turn their heads back, and then go back to walking, walking as they were, going back about their lives as they were, just to show like how far the reach of the High Table is, and just how many people in this universe actually are assassins. So like, there's a lot of like public, like basically like just hits to carry out in public. Like people are getting shot at in the middle of the street, and like some people are freaking out and running, but most people are just like kind of just going on about their day. Like there's entire segments in these movies, like especially in this one, where there's like a full blown like shootout in the middle of a street, and people are like just driving around it, like trying to like swerving past the guys that are in the street. Like these guys are all trying to kill John Wick, and there's cars are just like swerving around them, or like honestly, just motherfuckers getting thrown into cars. It's so fucking brutal. It's so good. If you haven't seen the series, I highly recommend watching the first two before coming in the first three before coming to this one. But those of you that have seen the first three, I don't know why I'm even making this because I don't need to tell you. If you've seen the first three, I don't need to tell you to go see the fourth one because it's fucking awesome. You've been waiting for it like I've been waiting for it. This is just, if you need that extra push, this movie is fucking awesome. It's so good. It's so brutal. The music in it's great. The fucking like car combat is back. Like there's so many fight scenes. Like there's literally a fight scene. Mind, I said no major spoilers. There will be no major spoilers in this. I will not spoil any major story moments in this movie whatsoever because I don't want you to not see. I want you to see. I won't spoil anything major. There will be some minor set pieces spoiled. Maybe some mentions of like certain weaponry used. Some scenes like that aren't major story thing. I won't flat out spoil the whole scene, but there are some things that are gonna be touched on. So if you don't want any spoilers at all, just click out of this now. But if you're okay with like some minor things or just want something that extra push to make you go see it this weekend or just go see it as soon as possible, here you go. But there's a fight scene in the middle of Paris. Like he's by the Arc de Triomphe. He's like in the streets, and like these dudes, like assassins, are coming for him because it was John Wick. He's excommunicado, so they're coming for him, and like he just starts throwing, like he's like ducking behind cars and like shooting at him and shit. And like at one point he just starts throwing motherfuckers. He grabs him, like cars are like speeding by and swerving, trying to get out of the way, and like he just takes the dude and just like throws him into an oncoming car. Like as the car's coming, just throws him at the fucking windshield of the car that's coming, and the dude just smacks off and flies off. And John just keeps fighting. It's so crazy. At one point, these dudes pull up like in muscle cars. He's like keep trying to T-bone like 3 muscle cars, and he just keep trying to T-bone them. And like he shoots all the dudes out of them, or whatever. And like he steals one of them, and just he starts driving around. It's like a throwback to his car from the first two movies. With like it's not the exact same car, but it's like similar to that vibe where he's like in the second movie where it starts off with him just fucking up his car to beat the shit out of those dudes. Well, it's like similar vibe where he's like he rips the fucking doors off of it, both the doors off this muscle car, just hitting people with him. It's more like he hits a pole and just knocks the door off, knocks the driver's door off just so he can like shoot without the door being there. Like easier access to shoot, but it's so fucking insane. He like grabs one of the dudes, picks him up, dudes like try to attack him while he's starting the car. So he like grabs him by his shirt, has the guy's jacket, slams it in the car door, locks the dude in place, and John just starts driving with this guy hanging off the window. It's so fucking brutal. He just like slams him into another car and like just throws him into somebody else, like some of the other attackers. It's so fucking nuts. There's one part where like dude's on the hood of the car, like there's a guy on the hood of the car. John Wick hits him and then T-bones like the side of a van with it. It's like it's so fucking brutal and intense and just nuts, but it's so good and like well done. Just the court fight choreography on it's crazy. There's one of these fight scenes in Paris is set to paint it black. I think it's the one. Yeah, it's the one where he gets the car. He first gets the car. It's set to fucking paint it black. It's so good. Like it's so crazy. It's so intense. It's like he's just fighting his way. It's like a lot of movies like he's just fighting his way through Paris. And like goons just keep attacking him. They keep telling him, "Oh, he's at this spot," and goons keep showing up and just keep chasing him down. He just keeps like fighting his way. Like he, it is. I will give it the. I'll give it the. Oh, it's kind of cliche of like he fights his way through a bunch of French landmarks, but it's also like you're in France. You gotta. It's a movie. It's an action movie. Yeah, sure, it has good story and great lore and well done. But it is also at the end of the day, it is also a dumb action movie. Also, apparently they got a you get a discount. Like they got a discount for shooting in Paris. Like shooting, I guess shooting either in Paris or in France. You get like a film discount. Films, films or like TV shows. Like filming in Paris, you can get a disc. You can qualify for a discount for it. But it's like and they mention that at the end of the credits. Like they full disclose that. Like yeah, we benefited from uh the what is it discount for filming in Paris. So like this film benefit from that discount. So there's a lot of it set, and a lot of it is set in Paris. Like a lot of the scenes are set in Paris, but like it also looks really good. It's really great backdrops for it. It's really awesome. Like the French subways are really cool and like have like it's giant paintings in them and it's like really artistic. It's so great. There's also a lot of it. There's also part of it that's in Russia. There's part of it where he's in America. There's part where he's in the desert, like trying this like talking about these locations without spoiling why he's in these areas, but also like that's why fighting around the world. He's like in multiple countries. It's John Wick. The high table has reach all around the world, so he's in all these places, and like it's just crazy as shit. Like the movie opens with Lawrence Fishburne doing this like intense fucking like just speech. I don't know. It might be from something. It might be a reference something. I don't fully know, but it just sounds awesome. It's like it's Lawrence Fishburne is the king of the borough or Bowery King. I can't remember his name is. I can't remember what his character's name is, but like he's the guy that's like the homeless guy who lives underground. His group, like his assassin group, are all homeless people, and so like they live in New York. They live like in the subway tunnels. So he controls the underground. Well, it's like him walking through a subway tunnel with a dog. He has a dog on a leash. He's holding a suit. He's holding a suit. And he's just walking down the tunnel like talking like super loud. It's like echoey. It's super loud and echoing because it's an empty subway tunnel as he's making his way towards John Wick. Because John came to him. Spoiler for John Wick 3, but John Wick turned to him for help at the end of the movie. And he's like been helping him like recover and train and get ready for this. And so like he's breaking John his suit while like basically giving his hype up speech. And it's fucking dope. The one thing I will say, this isn't a mark against the movie. This isn't outside of the movie itself. But I did see this in IMAX, and I kind of don't recommend going to see it in IMAX. Highly recommend seeing the movie. Movie's great. Don't recommend seeing it in IMAX. Like the IMAX is great because it's a bigger screen, but also it's the fucking like more intense surround sound, like more intense sound system for it. And this movie is a lot of gunfights. So it's a lot of gunshots, and so it's just really loud, intense, like surround sound gunshots, which you kind of don't need enhanced audio for that. Like, it's cool for like, oh yeah, like the music scenes, but like it's not really super music heavy. Like the music is more background thing. It isn't main focus. There isn't like the dialogue you can hear client. Like the dialogue's fine, but it's not a lot of like. There's not a like intense of like, oh, the sound of this is what you want to hear. Like it's almost a 3 hour movie. It's basically a 3 hour movie. You're gonna be hearing 3 hours of fucking basically HD gunshots. I do not recommend IMAX. I do recommend seeing the movie, but the IMAX audio is like, dude, that shit was so loud. Like, that's one of the things I just kept thinking all the time. I was like, God, like this is a good movie. This is great, but God damn, this shit's so loud and echoey. It's like, it's not, I don't want to say it sucks, that it doesn't take away from the movie experience. It's just, honestly, personally, I feel like it could have been a little that, because there's also things where like there is like there's a scene that takes place in essentially a rave, which is pretty awesome, pretty fucking badass. But like it's a rave, and so like the music is like super bass heavy, so the bass is hitting and like doom, 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 like the bass in the background is hitting super hard and like vibrating from that. But then also then also like a gunfight breaks out. So you have the music keep playing, so you have this echoing bass in the background on top of with gunshots on top of it. So it's like super like bass heavy moment. So yeah, like if you're sound sensitivity, do not go see this in IMAX. It is really intense, loud, but it is an awesome movie. It's a good story. It continues like the story adds even more lore to it, even adds even more backstory to the character of John Wick, even more to just like the continental lore, the lore of the organization in general. Just gives you some of the history of it. It's so awesome. Like it's so good. It's so great to be back in this world. Like this world still flushes out the world more, and it's super intense. And really, just there's a lot of like continuity. Like the continuity of like the previous movies. Like once again, if you haven't seen John Wick 3, highly recommend. Another mild spoiler for John Wick for 3. But like when John lost his finger, like he still has that finger missing in this. Lawrence Fishburne still has his scars from when he got cut in the third movie. Like he still has his scars like on his face from where he got sliced. It's like super intense. There's a lot of like there's a lot of gunfights. There's a lot of hand to hand combat in this one too. There's almost might be more hand to hand combat in this one than in the previous movies, because there's like several sword fights in this, which because also I mentioned that Russia, we got France. Part of this movie takes place in Japan, and there's like really intense like sword fights in it. There's a scene where like there's a shootout, and then like there's also archers because Japan. So you have people with bows and arrows, like in a shootout with gun. People shooting at them with guns, and they're shooting back with arrows, and it's super fucking dope and crazy. And mild spoiler. There's one part where like a guy's like fighting John like during the shootout, and like he has a gun, and like somebody shoots the attacker in like in the leg, shoots him in the knee with the arrow, and like pins his leg up against the wall, like higher up, like kind of high up, like in a kicking, but it's like he's like kicking in position, so his knee's stuck to the wall, and then John just fucking blasts him. Like John just shoots him, and it's so like dude's dead, and his leg's still hanging on the wall, so his leg's still stuck to the wall because the arrow went through his leg through the wall. So he's like his leg's still pinned on the wall, and he's just hanging there. It's fucking crazy. It's so funny, like it's so intense. There's a lot of like there's some like slapstick comedy moments that are like, oh damn, like recurring bits like, oh god, okay, this is gonna be a bit, all right, that's actually pretty funny. There's like this movie has like one of the best nunchuck fights I've ever seen. Like usually nunchucks are like, hey, like skilled people with nunchucks or make it look really easy but are really intense and crazy. People who are bad with nunchucks just like it makes it make them look like a useless weapon. So basically my film experience, like what I've seen, like nunchucks always seem like a useless weapon in movies. And even this, technically they don't seem like super like the most like useful, but they did John Wick uses them, like it does fight off a lot of guys with like a pair of no one pair of nunchucks, and like just like he just uses them like really well and like brutal as shit. Like he beats the shit out of several people with them. But they also seem like kind of not practical. But it's also like the whole thing is he has no access to the organization anymore, so he can't get weapons from them. He has to like just make do with what he has. So like he picks up anything, like he fights with anything he finds. Like he has a pair of nunchucks. He just starts beating the guy this one time. Like he's like beating this guy with him, and, like whipping him around. He like hits the dude in the head like 6 times with him, but like they go all the way around. It's almost like a yo-yo doing around the world. But it's just fun. That part just made me laugh personally. Like, but it was just so intense. Like, it's so funny because like everyone has like bulletproof suits. So like gunshots don't really matter unless the gunshots don't really matter unless like you're hitting behind the suit jacket, like you're somehow getting underneath the suit jacket and hitting them, or like legs, like hitting them like shooting them in the foot, or like headshots. So it's like so many people get shot and just kind of walk it off because like they're essentially wearing giant bulletproof vests, so it does hurt, but bullets aren't going through them. So there isn't like a super intense amount of like blood splatter, but like so like more like intense. The hand to hand combat is actually more like meaningful than the shootouts, because like the shootouts are like, oh god, like gunfights, but a lot of it is like the actual assassins. Like a lot of like the hand to hand combat where most of the kills come from. Is how you stop most of your enemies is by beating them hand to hand, because like the guns do damage over time, but like they're not flat out killing. Like the guns aren't flat out stopping. Like a lot of it is just like people are getting dropped by knives, getting stopped because they're getting stabbed. Like you run out of bullets and it's close, and it's funny because like this series does a does a really good job of like keeping ammo count realistic with guns, and like a lot of time like there's like, oh, some movies like you point out like John Wick pick up guns from people other people who's killed, and like when they run out of ammo he just throws it. That happens so many fucking times in this movie, but it's so funny because like he just constantly runs out of bullets. Every time he runs out of bullets, he just chucks the gun at somebody. Like he'll just throw the gun at somebody and hit him with it because he has to make him do whatever he can. So he throws a lot of guns. He throws like empty magazines at people. He throws the nunchucks at one point. Like he's throwing swords. He's throwing knives. Like he's just die. Like you're out of range and this is out of bullets. Fuck it, chuck. Bah, just smack him in the face with it. There's this one part like not a major spoiler, but there's one. These guys are chasing them, and they have these like dragon breath rounds, and like you see them load them into the guns, like you see them like test fire at their range, practice running before they go after John, and eventually like he gets one of their rifles, and he just goes through this house, and it's so many fucking people. Like these rounds, like they shoot out, and it's like giant ball of fire, and he sets like 17 people on fire. Like he's just shooting them, like he's going through his house, and there's all these goons coming after him. He just keeps fucking shooting them and setting them on fire. And there's this one scene where it's like in the kitchen, and so like the way it hits, I guess like the fire went over the stove and caught the gas from the stove on fire, so put a giant, but even bigger firewall on one of the guys. So he shoots that guy, turns and shoots the guy next to him, and then like the second guy that got hit drops, and like, oh, he's dead. He drops dead. But the first guy who got hit didn't really get hit with the round. He just got hit with the fire. So he's just on fire in the background, running like screaming, like and flailing. And it kind of reminded me of Deadpool 2, where he's doing that like slow motion fight where the guy in the front's running in slow motion, Deadpool's going crazy in the back, and then the narration, Deadpool's doing the narration, he's like, that guy's on fire. It's like it's immature, but that played in my head when that happened. I was like, that guy's on fire, because like this is an intense, like a really intense shootout that's been going on for a while, and like just multiple stories of this house, but it's just a guy in the corner just flailing on fire, on fire, and John Wick still like shooting it out, trying to save his life, trying to survive. It's so fucking intense, man. Like, but it's really great. It picks up where the story of 3 left off. It's a great continuation. I highly recommend seeing it. Like, it's so good, even if you're not a fan of action movies, because this isn't like I say dumb action movie, but even then, like it still has a lot of story, there's a lot of reason behind it. It's not just all like it's not Crank or Crank 2 level action. Like it's not super intense, high dumb, doesn't have to make sense like action. A lot of it makes sense. There's a lot of like really intense like training. The fight scenes are really well choreographed and like planned out, and really like you can tell they put a lot of effort into it and really try to make this like as realistic as possible, because as time goes on, John gets slower and like starts moving slower. His injuries start to catch up with him. You know, it's more and more intense and more like it gets harder and harder for him to fight because he's been like injured so long and because he's fighting so long. And like this movie takes place over like the course of days, and it's like him just constantly like night after night getting into fights. Because everyone wants him dead. The organization wants him dead, and they put a price on his head. I think it starts off at like 15 million. And then, like, by the end of the movie, it's, like, 30 to 40 million. Like, it keeps getting raised. Like, basically, every time they send a hit squad after him and they're not successful, they raise the price on his head and entice more people to try to kill him. But because it's John Wick, like, people want to do it for the lane, but also the money's enticing, but also it's John Wick. So it's like, he is the legend of this organization. Everyone knows he's, like, legendary agent. Like, he's super hard to kill. He's supposed to be super hard to kill. And so it's like, when he keeps murdering all these hit squads, and they just keep sending more and more goons at him like he's nobody. Like, they're just like, why aren't you getting this done? Why? Because it's John Wick. Like, come on now, it's obvious why they can't get it done. But it's so fucking good, dude. It's really intense. The story's really great. Like, it's really well done, well shot. Everything looks great. The movie, of course, mentioned in the beginning, rest in peace, Lance Reddick. The movie is actually dedicated to him. He played the concierge at the New York Continental, and, like, he was great in it. It was a really great character. It was unfortunate he passed recently. I think he passed either last week or week before. He passed right before the movie premiere, like right before the movie was released. Fortunately, he didn't make it to any of the premieres, but they did dedicate this one to him. It starts off with in loving memory to Lance Reddick. And honestly, like, this movie doesn't start, like, a movie starts off and goes straight into, like, story goes right to the point. Like, it doesn't start off with a lot of, like, oh, like, it doesn't do, like, a montage or, like shots from, like, flashbacks from previous movie. Like, it goes straight into, like, you see John training, and it's fucking Lawrence Fishburne delivering this monologue, and it's super intense. Like, his voice is just echoing, like, he has a super deep voice just echoing through this tunnel as he walks down this empty subway tunnel, and it's just hitting home, and it's really intense. It's just gearing you up for everything that's about to come. and it's really great, and I highly recommend checking it out. And honestly, I don't think there's any more. I don't have any more to say about it. It's just a really good movie. You should check it out. Hope it does well. Oh, honestly, there's one more, the last thing. There have been talks seen before. There were talks of like a series, a TV series being in the work about the show, about potentially being a TV series based on this world, based on the show, like set in this world. And I really hope that happens because it'd be really good. Like this show. I mean, this series, like this world fits itself like would fit perfectly in like a TV series, HBO Max, or like a, hate to say it, Paramount Plus or Netflix. Not Netflix, maybe Hulu, but like probably be like an HBO. It'd probably end up being an HBO or Amazon. Probably be the ones with the budget to pull this off because it'd be pretty like high budget. It'd be intense. You might not be able to get the biggest name actors back in it, or you're making them for cameos, but just being able to set up that world and like get the scenes right and like get the shots right and the backgrounds right. It'd be so good. But yeah. Thanks for checking out this episode. Let me know if you have seen John Wick 4. Let me know what you think of the movie in the comments below. Let me know what you think I should do for future episodes. What you thought about this episode. Please like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, follow me on Twitter at TalkThat6. And yeah, thanks for checking this out. Peace.